size, certainly, I think I looked it up today. We have the sixth tallest team in terms of average height in the country, according to KenPom. And so not that height necessarily correlates with rebounding always, right? Because sometimes smaller guys just have a better knack for finding the ball. But it should be a strength of this team with the composite size we have. When you talk about even guys like Roddy Gale, who can be a better rebounder for us than he's been so far. Sam Walters can stick his nose in there. He's not the strongest kid, but he can stick his nose in there a little bit more than Amari, guys like that. So obviously everybody points our bigs, but a lot of times what happens honestly is teams put one or two guys on them and they're in a battle, right, with another body, and don't always have the freedom to release and go get the ball. That's where our guards have to continue to be better in that area for us.
James?
You've coached some good defensive teams in Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
I think they're right to the top 20 defensive efficiency. I guess what do you feel like are the required ingredients to kind of make a good team defense?
Well, first is effort, right? There's a will defensively that you have to have. If you don't have a desire to be good defensively, you won't. And so you got to be committed. Have to understand that your teammates need you. And obviously, there's some things intangibly that can make a defense better or not as good. Length helps because you can be more disruptive without necessarily pressuring or pressing, so to speak. Rebound is always a big part of your ability to be a good defensive team, because if you can't finish the possession, it really kind of moots the effort that you put to stop a team from getting a great shot. But then obviously you got to have guys who understand the concepts that you're trying to implement, whether it be how you're going to defend ball screens, how you're going to defend in the post, how you're going to defend the teams go to 5 out, which sometimes I think we'll see, especially to counter our size. So just effort, concepts, and then just a will to be good on that end, and a desire to understand that that's a part of being a good team, is having a good defense to counter what we think will be a really good offense.
And I know it's early, but do you feel like this team has the makings to maybe be like a top 30, top 25?
Yeah, it's too early to say. Kind of, what I have a hard time with now in college basketball is just there's so much turnover everywhere, right? It used to be just a few teams took transfers, and so it took a while for you to figure out. But everybody, we're obviously an example of it. We won't know a lot about a lot of teams for probably another month. Probably getting to mid-December before you can say, okay, their identity's taking shape here. But what I do like is that from a length and from a philosophical standpoint, there's a path to being a really good defensive team. And so if we were really small and thought we had to press, I'd be concerned, because it's not necessarily going to go well with how we want to play offensively. We can tire ourselves out on defense, but we can be really good in the half court defensively as we're built.
Coach on your left with Alejandro.
Even before the season, Dusty May was mentioning that he was concerned about Michigan potentially not being that good defensive rebounding. What were some of the factors that you guys saw in training camp that gave him that forecast, I guess?
Well, just watch us in practice every day. I think you just take the information that you're receiving from what you're seeing on a day-to-day basis in practice. And rebounding honestly, a lot of times is it's kind of you really kind of do it well, or you don't. Don't really teach guys to become good rebounders. Think about the best rebounders. A lot of it, like Dennis Rodman, obviously being around this area, wasn't the biggest guy. He had an unbelievable will to just go find the ball. And we don't necessarily have a bunch of guys who have that. And so you got to teach them how to conceptually rebound. Where the ball may bounce, obviously a shot taken from one side of the floor usually is going to bounce the other way. So we're teaching those guys that. But our offense in practice puts us into some pretty compromising positions. And so it exposes some of those things earlier than maybe we would have found out before.
Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned it there at the end. I wanted to ask a little bit. So you have that offense that runs really quick. How does that impact the way that you have to scheme a defense? Like, are you sitting back a little bit to give guys a breather, knowing that they're going to push on offense? Are you crashing the boards this heavily? Like, how does the offensive play impact the way that you look at the defense?
Yeah, obviously you have to coach one side of the ball to continue to have a positive impact on the other side. And so we won't necessarily press as much if we don't need to. We'll play much more half-court control of the game. With our size, we think we can be disruptive in the half-court well enough not to have to extend the floor a ton. But at the same time, our offense is going to be one that's more free-flowing. And because of that, we're going to have guys probably cross-matched in transition because a lot of guys can handle the ball for us. You'll see Danny Wolf pushing the break, so maybe he may get cross-matched because he's taking a three, or maybe he's cutting to the basket, or him and Vlad are playing in a two-man game. Well, now our guards are getting back having to guard bigger guys. So at that point, it's just a matter of communication. And so we switch a lot because we have positional size. We think that teams won't be able to really hurt us in switching. But again, we don't know how good we can be until we get 5, 6, 7 games under our belt and have some real data against other opponents. Because one of the things that we don't see a lot in practice is pressure defense. And so I think even in the weight game, they got a little more aggressive midway through the first half, kind of put us on our heels a little bit there. To end the half, we didn't have a great finish to the half or a great start to the second half because it took us some time to adapt to their physicality. Because we do, again, in our practices, we don't see that on a day-to-day basis. So getting these reps in non-conference will help us move forward.
Andrew?
I know you faced TCU last year, but it looks like maybe only one guy who played in that game is like still on the
Unbelievable,
team.
isn't it?
So is it just completely new? What can you say about what
Well, just Jamie Dixon, right? Proven coach, proven winner. He's had success everywhere he's been. Even as time as an assistant at Pitt, then he took over and they were really, really good. And then obviously it took a little while to get TCU going, but he's been to the tournament I think three years in a row now, maybe. And unfortunately had to face Gonzaga in the second round 2 of those years. Otherwise, he may have had a better chance to get to the Sweet 16. But his teams have always been really, really physical, really tough. The last few years, they've been really, really fast. I think they've led the nation the last 2 years in transition points. And so, the way they want to play, the way we want to play, could be led to a very entertaining game. A lot of points scored. Not for the defensive coach won't be so happy, but they're going to be well prepared. They're going to be disciplined. They're going to be tough and physical, and they'll play fast.
Okay.
When another team is like going to trap you guys out of a ball screen, what are the keys to beating that? And is that an emphasis going into this one?
Yeah, spacing, right? You got to have outlets. We won't see. I don't think we'll see a whole lot of trapping, just because we have so many different guys who can handle the ball, pass it, and shoot it. So it'll put us in an advantage situation somewhere if they're putting 2 on the ball a lot. So then it's a matter of cutting and finding the right guy. But to do that, we got to be willing to know that it's okay to get off of it. Sometimes it's harder for guys earlier to trust that because they're used to. And Wolf is probably the best example we have. He was so prominently featured in their offense that he's starting to figure out that Trey Donaldson can handle the ball and make plays for him. Trey doesn't necessarily need him to make plays for himself all the time. And so just getting that chemistry in these games will really help us long term. But in terms of trapping us, I mean, we got guys like Sam Walters out there, and you're making the choice to maybe leave him open by chance or being in the late rotation to him. I think teams will second guess whether they'll actually trap us a lot. Maybe in the post some, because our bigs are usually not as good passers out of double teams, but our guards will be handling the ball most of the time in those pick and roll situations.
Coach, right in the middle with Anthony.
Yeah, when it comes to how you guys operate as a staff, is it data driven? Is it feel and gut instinct, or what's kind of the dynamic of how you guys prepare?
I'd say it's probably 75 to 80% data driven. But there's an element of knowing your team that you kind of have to throw the numbers out with. We're learning some of that because we have so many new guys. We're new to each other, some of us. Known Dusty for a long time, never worked with him. So I'll give you a great example. I was helping them with substitutions, and I think it was maybe our second exhibition game, and Ruben picked up a second foul in the first half. Well, my philosophy, we hadn't talked about that. So in the game, I didn't sub him in, but I asked him about it afterwards, and he's like, you know what, I would probably have been okay with it. So those are some of the things that we'll learn as a staff, because some people are tried and true. 2 fouls in the first half, you sit, right? And some people are less restrictive on that. And so those things will evolve as we learn our guys, how they handle those situations. As you saw the other day, we played Ruben and Amari with 2 fouls in the first half on Sunday, right? So those are things that we'll continue to learn about ourselves as a staff, but also about our team, what they can handle.
And then you said with other teams, it might take you a month and a half to figure out what they are. Is that how you feel about your guys' process too?
Yeah, I mean, just to give a kind of ballpark, it won't be exactly right. November, what was our first game? November 3rd, 4th? What was it? 4th, right? It won't necessarily be December 4th, but I think around that time we would have played enough games, home, neutral, high major, mid major, different styles. We saw some zone against Oakland. We saw some pressure defense against Wake. I'm sure we'll see something a little bit different from TCU in terms of maybe how they guard ball screens. Typically, they've kind of iced them or tried to keep us on the side of the floor when I coached against it before. We haven't seen that yet. So I think we'll have enough, at least, entry points of data where we can say, okay, this is how this team needs to become good over the next month, right? So then December's a month about fine-tuning those things before you really get into the grind of conference play.
On your left, Tony.
Yeah, Mike. When we hear about Danny and Vlad working together, a lot of the talk about working on some of the kinks, right, is on the offensive end. But I guess I just want to know what it's like working with those 2 7-footers on defense and sort of this vision that you guys had and how it could work versus how it's coming together.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So when I first told Dusty back in the spring that I would come with him and we knew we were going to pursue both of those guys, that was the first thing he said. He said, I need you to study the film on if this can work defensively. He felt pretty confident about it working offensively, but in terms of how I thought I could help us build a system with the rest of the staff on, can we be a switching team with 2 bigs? Can one of them good enough to guard on the perimeter and switching, which we do a lot? And the truth is, college basketball helps you a little bit with that because you can play zone, you can stand in the lane a little bit more, you can help off certain guys. This with the NBA may be a little bit more difficult to do that because of the spacing rules and the defense of 3 seconds. But those guys have embraced the challenge because it has been different for them. We have asked them to do things that they haven't done as much in the past, but they're really coachable guys. And I think their teammates are learning how to help them when they are in those situations on the perimeter. But we had a possession the other day where there was some confusion. Black got caught on the perimeter. We gave up a 3 toward the end of the first half. But again, it's getting through those kinks and figuring out how to get those rotations down that actually excite me. Those are the challenges that I look forward to solving during the season with our guys. And then looking back and saying, man, we did a really good job addressing that. Hopefully we won't have those situations hurt us as much moving forward.
James.
I guess, how do you grade if you guys had good defensive performance? I guess, are there any certain benchmarks or numbers or metrics that you guys are trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things. We talk a lot about challenging shots. We want a high percentage of the shots to be challenged. We obviously don't want to give up as many threes. You want to take away from the other team what you want to do, right, to win on offense. So we want to make a lot of threes, and we don't want to let the other team make a lot of threes. Defensive three-point percentage is a big one for us. We've defended the 3 pretty well so far in the first couple games. Contested shots, rebounding is always a big number for us. And then another one is like assisted baskets by our team, how well they're playing within their offense. If teams are playing a lot of one-on-one, it's usually good for us because it means we can build help and make them take tougher shots. Wick did that with some success, more than we liked the other day, but those are 3 of the things that we were pretty consistent about.
I know Justin, he's been dressing, but he hasn't just played yet. I guess is there update on, his status?
Yeah, so I have to kind of be a little careful on how much I speak. Dusty's the head coach still, so he's practicing. I think he's trending toward playing, but it's obviously the conversation is going to come from him.